The ocean has always held secrets, secrets older than our maps, older than our civilizations, older than memory itself. And there is one place out in the Western Atlantic where those secrets feel unusually close, a vast stretch of water between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, a place sailors whispered about long before it had a name, a place where compasses behaved strangely, where storms rose without warning, and where ships and planes seemed to vanish without leaving a single trace. Today we call it the Bermuda Triangle. For decades, this corner of the ocean has been surrounded by stories of pilots losing their bearings in clear skies, of radios going silent mid-sentence, of search teams finding nothing but empty waves and endless blue. Some say the triangle hides magnetic anomalies. Others speak of undersea faults, rogue waves, or invisible currents. And some believe the explanation lies far beyond science, in lost civilizations, strange energies, or forces we cannot yet understand. But before we explore theories, we begin with something simpler, the ocean itself, its calm surface, its shifting winds, its quiet hum that feels almost alive. The Bermuda Triangle is more than a mystery. It is a reminder of how small we are and how vast the world remains, even in an age of satellites and technology. Tonight, as you listen, let the sound of this story carry you gently across the water. Let the mystery unfold slowly, like distant waves rolling toward the shore. And perhaps, somewhere in the quiet, you'll understand why the Bermuda Triangle has captured human imagination for generations. Now, let's begin our journey into the Atlantic. The Bermuda Triangle is not an official place. You won't find it marked on nautical charts. No boundary lines appear on satellite maps. And yet, for millions of people, it is one of the most famous geographic shapes on Earth, a wide triangle stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. To understand the mysteries associated with this region, we must begin with its physical reality. Because long before the legends, the disappearances, or the sensational stories, the Bermuda Triangle was defined by the ocean itself, vast, unpredictable, and constantly in motion. This part of the Atlantic spans more than 500,000 square miles. From Florida's coastline, the water shifts from turquoise shallows to deep navy blue in a matter of miles. The sea floor here drops sharply, almost like a cliff beneath the waves, descending into some of the deepest trenches of the Western Atlantic. This sudden change in depth creates powerful underwater dynamics that can shape waves, currents, and even weather patterns. One of the most important forces in this region is the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is a fast-moving current of warm water that flows north from the Caribbean, hugging the coast of Florida before crossing the ocean toward Europe. It is like a river within the sea, sometimes moving at speeds of up to 2 meters per second. Anything that enters this current can be carried far away in a very short time. A ship that loses power, a plane that crashes, or debris from a wreck can drift dozens of miles before search crews arrive. This makes recovery efforts extremely difficult and contributes to many of the mysterious disappearances often linked to the Bermuda Triangle. The weather in this region is just as dynamic. The triangle sits directly in the path of warm, humid air from the Caribbean, which collides with cooler air masses moving down from the north. This meeting of temperatures can generate sudden storms, thunderstorms, squalls, and even tropical cyclones. Pilots have reported flying into clear skies, only to encounter violent turbulence moments later. Sailors throughout history have spoken about walls of clouds appearing without warning and winds shifting direction unexpectedly. Weather systems here form quickly and with great power. Waterspouts, tornadoes over the ocean, are common. They can rise hundreds of meters into the air and produce dangerous downdrafts capable of forcing aircraft toward the sea. For most of history, meteorologists had no way of tracking these sudden events, making navigation across this region even more challenging. Beneath the surface, the ocean floor contributes further complexity. The Puerto Rico Trench, located at the southeastern edge of the triangle, plunges to depths of nearly 27,000 feet, more than 8 kilometers. This makes it the deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean. Any vessel that sinks here would fall into darkness, where human recovery becomes nearly impossible. Even modern submersibles struggle to operate at such depths, where the pressure can crush steel. If something disappears into this trench, it may never be found again. Not because of a supernatural force, but because of geology. Navigation has historically been a problem as well. Centuries ago, before GPS and satellite guidance, sailors relied on magnetic compasses, but the Bermuda Triangle lies near a place where magnetic north and true north align closely, a phenomenon known as a magnetic declination zero. When early navigators passed through this area, they often misjudged their direction, believing their compasses were malfunctioning. A miscalculation of just a few degrees could send a ship miles off its course, leading to confusion, lost bearings, and sometimes disaster. Another factor is human perception. Because the triangle covers such a large and heavily traveled area, statistically, accidents are bound to happen simply due to volume. Thousands of ships and aircraft cross the region each week. Commercial routes, cruise lines, fishing vessels, and recreational boats. The more traffic an area has, the more likely incidents will occur. Yet when incidents happen in the Bermuda Triangle, they are more likely to be interpreted through the lens of mystery, rather than statistical probability. The combination of strong currents, sudden storms, deep trenches, and magnetic quirks creates a region where nature challenges human reliability. There's nothing inherently supernatural about these forces, but their unpredictability makes the area feel different, more alive, more capable of surprising even experienced captains and pilots. And this unpredictability is exactly what shaped the stories that followed. For before the Bermuda Triangle became a global phenomenon, long before it appeared in books, newspapers, or documentaries, sailors were already whispering about strange experiences in these waters, whispers that would eventually grow into the legends we still talk about today. Long before it was called the Bermuda Triangle, long before news headlines turned it into a mystery, sailors were already uneasy about this part of the ocean. For centuries, the Western Atlantic was known for its unpredictability. To early explorers, the sea itself felt alive, shifting, changing, and often refusing to follow the rules they believed they understood. Some of the earliest stories come from the age of European exploration. Spanish sailors traveling between the Caribbean and the Old World wrote of waters where the winds would suddenly die, leaving ships stranded for days under a heavy, breathless sky. Without wind, a ship became helpless. Supplies ran low, tempers rose, and the stillness of the sea felt unnatural, almost threatening. These early mariners spoke of dead waters, a phrase that would later be repeated by many who crossed the region. Christopher Columbus himself recorded strange observations while passing through the area in 1492. In his ship's journal, he described erratic movements of his compass, unusual lights hovering over the water, and fires in the distant horizon. Some historians believe he saw meteor showers or bioluminescent algae, while others interpret his writings as the earliest European account of strange phenomena in the Triangle. Whatever he witnessed, it left a lasting impression on him and his crew. Throughout the 1600s and 1700s, as trade routes expanded, more ships ventured through this region. Captains reported sudden storms, violent waterspouts, and currents powerful enough to push a vessel miles off its intended path. In an era before modern navigation, such unpredictability could easily lead to shipwrecks or disappearances, but sailors often framed these events in the language of superstition, blaming sea monsters, curses, or enchanted waters rather than environmental forces. In the 1800s, newspapers occasionally published accounts of ships that left port and were never heard from again. In an ocean this vast, such tragedies were unfortunately common. But the Bermuda region seemed to gather more than its share of legends. Stories spread of ghost ships found drifting with no crew aboard. Though documentation is scarce, and often exaggerated. Still, these tales contributed to a growing belief that the waters held secrets and dangers unlike anywhere else. One particularly influential story from this period is that of the schooner Rosalie, supposedly discovered in 1840 with sails intact but no crew on board. While later research cast doubt on the details, such stories captured the imagination of the public and reinforced the idea of an eerie region where things could vanish without explanation. By the late 19th century, shipping records began to show patterns. Ships leaving Charleston, New York, or Miami occasionally disappeared in the same broad area. In most cases, the cause was likely storms, poor navigation, or mechanical failure. But because communication was limited and wreckage was rarely found, disappearances seem more mysterious than they truly were. The term Bermuda Triangle had not yet been invented. To sailors of this era, it was simply the Devil's Sea, the storm corridor, or more quietly, that dangerous route. The legends spread through word of mouth, shared in ports, taverns, and seafaring communities. It wasn't until the 20th century that these scattered stories began to merge into a single narrative. In 1909, the disappearance of the brigantine Spray caught public attention. Its captain, Joshua Slocum, was one of the most experienced sailors of his time, the first person to sail solo around the world. When his boat vanished somewhere in the region between the Caribbean and Bermuda, newspapers speculated wildly. To many, if Slocum could be lost here, the danger must be real. The 20th century brought new technology, radios, better compasses, early aircraft, but also new kinds of mysteries. Aviation accidents began to add to the legend. Pilots reported sudden equipment failures, strange atmospheric conditions, or disorientation in perfectly clear weather. Some attributed this to human error, but to the public, the stories fed a growing sense of wonder and fear. In 1918, the USS Cyclops vanished with more than 300 men aboard. It was one of the largest non-combat losses in U.S. naval history, and because no distress signal was ever sent, the disappearance felt inexplicable. The fate of the Cyclops would eventually become one of the core mysteries associated with the Bermuda Triangle. But it wasn't just the events themselves, it was the storytelling. The early 20th century was a golden age of newspapers searching for dramatic stories. Sensationalism was common, and tales of ships and planes vanishing without a trace made good headlines. The more dramatic the story, the more attention it received. By the 1950s, the idea of a mysterious region in the Atlantic gained momentum. Writers began connecting old stories, drawing lines between events that had never been related before. Disappearances were grouped together as if they formed a pattern. The narrative grew. A specific part of the ocean was swallowing ships and airplanes. And then in 1964, journalist Vincent Gaddis coined the term Bermuda Triangle in a magazine article. With a name, the legend solidified. What had once been scattered maritime rumors became a unified myth, a single idea, powerful and unforgettable. From that moment on, every unexplained incident in the region, no matter how ordinary the cause, became part of a much larger story. A story that would soon sweep across bookshelves, documentaries, and public imagination, transforming a simple stretch of ocean into one of the most famous mysteries in the world. The Bermuda Triangle became a global mystery not because of small incidents or isolated accidents, but because of several large-scale disappearances that captured the world's attention. These cases, separated by decades, yet similar in their eerie lack of evidence, are the foundation of the Triangle's enduring reputation. And the most iconic of them began shortly after the end of World War II. On December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine training mission. The weather was calm, visibility was good, and each aircraft was fully fueled. The flight was led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced pilot with hundreds of hours of flight time. but something went wrong. About 90 minutes after takeoff, radio operators received a strange transmission from Taylor. His voice sounded tense. He reported that his compasses were malfunctioning and that he could no longer determine his position. The other pilots echoed the same problem. It was as if all their navigation instruments had suddenly become unreliable. Radio logs preserved the final conversations. Taylor reported, "We can't tell where we are. Everything looks wrong." Another pilot said they couldn't find land, even though they were supposed to be only a short distance from the Florida coast. As daylight faded and fuel levels dropped, the squadron became increasingly disoriented. The last communication came from one of the pilots saying, "We're running low on fuel. When someone reaches 10 gallons, we all go down together." Then silence. A massive search operation was launched immediately. Hundreds of aircraft and ships combed the area. Not a single piece of wreckage was found. What made the event even more mysterious was the disappearance of one of the rescue planes, a large PBM Mariner flying boat with a crew of 13. It took off to look for the missing squadron and vanished shortly after. Witnesses reported seeing an explosion in the sky, suggesting the plane might have suffered a mechanical failure, but again, no debris was recovered. Flight 19, along with the rescue crew, seemed to vanish into the Atlantic. Decades earlier, another disappearance had already hinted at something strange in this region. In 1918, the USS Cyclops, one of the largest ships in the U.S. Navy at the time, disappeared without a trace. The vessel was carrying more than 300 crew and passengers, along with a heavy load of manganese ore. Its last message read, "Weather fair, all well." It never arrived at its destination, no distress signal was sent, and no debris was ever located. The Cyclops' sister ships Proteus and Nereus later vanished under similar circumstances in the same region, igniting speculation that something unusual was happening in these waters. The years following World War II added even more unsettling stories. In January 1948, a British South American Airways aircraft called Star Tiger disappeared while flying toward Bermuda. The pilot last reported mild concerns about headwinds and fuel consumption, but nothing that suggested danger. Minutes later, all radio contact ended. The ocean search that followed found no wreckage, no oil slicks, nothing at all. Less than a year later, another British South American Airways plane, Star Ariel, vanished on a flight from Bermuda to Jamaica. Weather conditions were clear, the aircraft was in perfect working order, and the pilot sounded calm during his last transmission. And then, as if erased, the plane was gone. Investigators concluded they could not determine a cause. For the public, the disappearance felt supernatural. But the incidents didn't stop with large aircraft. Smaller planes added to the list of mysteries. One of the most famous cases happened in December 1948, when a Douglas DC-3 with 29 people aboard disappeared just minutes before landing in Miami. The pilot's final transmission requested landing clearance. He was only about 50 miles from the airport. The weather was stable, and then the plane disappeared without another word. Despite extensive search efforts, nothing has ever been found. Even cases close to shore fueled the legend. In December 1967, a cabin cruiser named Witchcraft left Miami with 2 men on board. They traveled only 1 mile from the coast, so close they could still see the lights of the city. One of the men radioed the Coast Guard, saying they believed the boat had hit something and needed assistance. He emphasized that they were not sinking, just concerned. The Coast Guard arrived at the coordinates less than 20 minutes later. The sea was calm. The visibility was clear, yet the boat was gone. There was no sign of damage, no debris, no oil, nothing to indicate what had happened. These disappearances formed a pattern that seemed too strange to ignore. Large ships, commercial airliners, private planes, and small boats had all vanished in the same broad region, often without sending distress signals. What bothered investigators most was not simply the number of incidents, but the details. No wreckage, no bodies, no conclusive evidence. With each case, the legend grew stronger. In many oceans around the world, shipwrecks and crashes leave traces behind. Pieces of fuselage, life vests, floating debris. Something remains on the surface. But in the Bermuda Triangle, many incidents ended in absolute silence. This absence of evidence shaped the imagination of millions. It created the sense that the triangle had the power not just to destroy, but to erase. Over time, these events merged into a single narrative, a place where things disappear without explanation. The public began to ask questions. Why did compasses fail? Why were no emergency signals sent? Why did search teams find nothing, even when they arrived quickly? Were these accidents the result of human error, natural phenomena, or something beyond our understanding? The disappearances did more than inspire fear. They inspired theories. Some people believed that strong magnetic fields interfered with instruments. Others suggested methane gas eruptions from the ocean floor. Still others proposed that giant rogue waves, unpredictable and devastating, could sink vessels before they had time to react. And of course, more imaginative theories involving extraterrestrial forces or underwater civilizations became part of the cultural landscape. But before exploring those extraordinary interpretations, it is essential to remember one thing. The Bermuda Triangle's mystery was built not just on what happened, but on what was never found. The ocean is vast. Its depths reach further than human technology can easily explore. And in this particular part of the Atlantic, conditions can make even the most straightforward search efforts nearly impossible. As disappearances accumulated, the Bermuda Triangle became more than a point on the map. It turned into a symbol, a place where logic seemed to weaken and the extraordinary felt possible. With every unexplained loss, new ideas appeared. Some were rooted in nature, others drifted far into mystery. One of the earliest theories involved magnetic anomalies. Navigators for centuries reported strange compass behavior in these waters. The region lies near a place where magnetic north and true north almost align, which can confuse older instruments and send ships or planes off course over time. This simple navigation issue took on a mystical quality. Writers imagined enormous magnetic vortices capable of disrupting aircraft instruments or even distorting time itself. Modern science finds no proof of such extremes, but the idea became part of triangle lore. Another theory focused on methane hydrates buried beneath the seafloor. If these frozen gas deposits suddenly release, huge bubbles of methane can rush upward, lowering water density. In experiments, objects sink rapidly in such conditions. Some suggested a ship could vanish almost instantly, leaving no debris. Though rare in this region, the theory offered a scientific explanation that still feels dramatic and unsettling. Rogue waves added another layer. These enormous, unexpected walls of water, sometimes 30 meters high, were once considered legends. Today, they're a proven phenomenon. In the storm-prone Western Atlantic, such waves can form suddenly, striking vessels with devastating force. A ship caught in one could sink before a distress call is made, and the Gulf Stream could scatter debris far away. The idea of such massive waves rising from calm seas fueled the triangle's ominous reputation. But as the legend grew, so did more fantastical interpretations. Stories of Atlantis became deeply tied to the region. Some writers claimed remnants of a lost civilization, perhaps powered by ancient energy sources, lay beneath the ocean. These imaginary technologies, crystal generators or electromagnetic machines, were said to interfere with modern navigation. Though historically unfounded, the narrative spread through documentaries and books until it became a defining part of triangle mythology. Others believed the region contained energy vortices, invisible columns of electromagnetic force. These vortex zones were said to create electronic fog, sudden white mist that disrupts visibility, and instruments pilots have described disorientation and strange readings, experiences later retold as evidence of energy anomalies. While none of these cases have been proven, they added a mysterious texture to the legend. Extraterrestrial theories also emerged. Because many disappearances left no physical trace, some concluded the triangle was a hotspot for UFO activity. The lack of debris and sudden loss of contact were interpreted as signs of abductions or encounters. Some imagined underwater alien bases hidden in the depths of the Puerto Rico Trench. These ideas, though speculative, became part of the cultural identity of the triangle, repeated in radio shows, books, and documentaries for decades. The most extreme theories suggest the Bermuda Triangle is a portal, a doorway between dimensions. According to this view, ships and planes do not sink. They are transported elsewhere. Accounts of pilots experiencing missing time, unusual cloud formations, or abrupt weather changes were woven into this narrative. While unsupported by science, such stories captivated the public and gave the triangle a mythic, almost supernatural presence. Part of the triangle's appeal comes from the ocean itself. The deep sea is still one of the least explored environments on Earth. Its darkness, pressure, and scale leave much unknown, encouraging the imagination to fill the gaps. In that vast hidden world, the line between science and speculation blurs easily. Ultimately, these theories reveal more about human nature than about the ocean. People are drawn to mysteries, especially those that resist simple explanations. The Bermuda Triangle has become a blank canvas for our fears, our curiosity, and our fascination with the unknown. And in these waters, where storms rise suddenly, currents shift without warning, and the horizon seems endless, the unknown feels especially alive. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle has been described as a place where the laws of nature bend, and ships and planes vanish under circumstances that seem almost supernatural. But when these events are examined through science, a different picture emerges, shaped not by the paranormal, but by powerful natural forces and human limitations. The first major factor is geography. The triangle sits where the Gulf Stream, a strong, fast-moving current, flows north from the Caribbean. This river in the ocean can carry debris away in hours. A vessel that becomes disabled may leave almost no trace, not because it disappeared mysteriously, but because the current dispersed everything far from the original site before rescue teams arrived. Weather also plays a crucial role. This region lies where warm tropical air meets cooler northern air, creating sudden storms. Clear skies can transform into violent squalls, thunderstorms, or waterspouts in minutes before modern forecasting. Sailors often face these shifts without warning. Even today, rapid turbulence or powerful downdrafts can overwhelm pilots, especially when visibility drops and instruments become difficult to read. Navigation once caused many problems. The Bermuda Triangle is near a zone where magnetic north and true north nearly align. Older compasses, sensitive to even small shifts, could mislead sailors and pilots. A slight deviation could send a vessel miles off course. Combined with sudden weather changes, such errors sometimes led to fatal situations long before GPS existed. Below the surface, the seafloor adds another layer of risk. The Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic, lies on the triangle's edge. A ship or aircraft sinking into this abyss may never be found due to extreme pressure, darkness, and depth. Many wrecks remain undiscovered not because they vanished, but because locating anything in such conditions is nearly impossible. Human factors contribute as well. The Triangle is one of the busiest travel corridors on the planet. Thousands of flights and ships pass through every week. Statistically, more traffic means more accidents. The region's mysterious reputation comes not from abnormal danger, but from how these accidents have been framed in media and popular culture. Some scientific theories attempt to explain the sudden nature of certain disappearances. One involves methane hydrates, frozen gas pockets beneath the ocean floor. If they rupture, methane bubbles rising to the surface can reduce water density. A ship could lose buoyancy and sink rapidly. Though rare, this scenario provides a dramatic but natural explanation for vessels that left no debris. Another factor is rogue waves. These are huge, unexpected walls of water that can reach 20 to 30 meters. Once considered maritime myths, they are now documented by satellites. In storm-heavy regions like the Western Atlantic, rogue waves can appear suddenly and strike with enough force to destroy large ships before any distress signal is made. The Gulf Stream can then scatter remains over vast distances. Aviation incidents also have grounded explanations. Older aircraft were vulnerable to electrical interference during storms. Sudden static bursts or pressure changes could disrupt instruments. When clouds hide the horizon, pilots can experience spatial disorientation, losing the sense of altitude and direction. This phenomenon has caused fatal accidents worldwide, not only in the Bermuda Triangle. Temperature inversions, warm air trapping cooler air near the ocean, can distort visibility, making the horizon appear to vanish or shift. For pilots relying on visual cues, this can create dangerous misjudgments. Human error played a role in many cases. Fatigue, poor training, unfamiliar routes, and rushed decisions during bad weather contributed to tragedies. Wartime flights, like those of Flight 19, often involved stressed crews making critical mistakes. Media sensationalism amplified the mystery. For decades, newspapers and TV programs highlighted unexplained disappearances while downplaying mundane causes like storms or mechanical failure. Over time, this created a cultural narrative in which ordinary maritime risks became evidence of a supernatural zone. But the truth is simpler. The ocean is vast, deep, and unpredictable. Large areas remain unmapped. Wreckage may sink into trenches or drift far away. Many incidents remain unsolved, not because they defy nature, but because nature itself leaves so few traces. Science does not make the triangle less interesting. Instead, it shows that this region is shaped by strong currents, sudden storms, magnetic quirks, human error, and the limits of our technology. The mystery endures because the ocean still holds secrets, and because our understanding of it is far from complete. For all the scientific explanations offered over the decades, one question remains. Why does the Bermuda Triangle continue to fascinate us? Why does this region still feel mysterious, even in an age of satellites and advanced navigation? Part of the answer lies in how humans interpret uncertainty. When facts fail to offer closure, imagination takes over. The triangle sits at a place where knowledge ends and possibility begins, leaving room for the extraordinary. Human beings have always been drawn to the unknown. For most of history, storms, eclipses, and disasters appeared without explanation, and people created myths to understand them. The Bermuda Triangle became a modern echo of those ancient stories, a stretch of sea that seemed to resist simple answers. It invited speculation, curiosity, and wonder. Its legend grew rapidly in the 20th century. From the 1950s to the 1970s, books and documentaries presented the triangle as a zone where science faltered and strange forces took over. Real incidents were blended with speculation, often exaggerated or stripped of context. Disappearances that had no connection were woven together into a dramatic narrative. This storytelling resonated with the public, tapping into the desire to believe that some mysteries still exist in a world that feels increasingly mapped and understood. Television amplified the myth even further. Dramatic music, dim lighting, and interviews with sailors and pilots made the triangle feel like a gateway to the unknown. Even when experts offered ordinary explanations, the atmosphere emphasized mystery. The region became a stage where imagination could run free. The disappearances were also modern, not ancient shipwrecks, but airplanes with radios, instruments, and trained crews. The idea that such machines could vanish without a trace created a deep psychological tension. It challenged our belief that technology protects us from nature. It suggested that the world still holds places beyond our control. Triangle stories also touch something emotional. They combine fear of the unknown with the comfort of hearing the story from safety. Much like ghost tales told at night, they provide controlled fear, a momentary thrill without real danger. The region symbolizes something larger too, the vastness of the ocean. Even in an age of satellites, the deep sea remains unexplored, dark, and unpredictable. The Bermuda Triangle represents that remaining frontier, a reminder that nature is still bigger and more complex than we imagine. Culture blurs the line between fact and fiction. Books link the triangle to Atlantis. Films turn it into a vortex or dimensional gate. Video games portray it as a site of secrets or experiments. These depictions shape how new generations view the mystery, even if they know little about the real events. The legends spread beyond entertainment. Psychologists study why people enjoy mysteries. Sociologists examine how legends evolve. Historians explore why certain events remain in public memory. The triangle became a symbol, a case study in how stories grow and survive. Humans naturally search for patterns. When unrelated accidents happen in the same general area, the mind connects them. A ship lost one decade and a plane the next become parts of one story, even when no real link exists. This tendency makes the triangle feel intentional, as if it were an active force rather than a busy region. With occasional tragedies, media reinforcement keeps the myth alive. Every new article or video, even the skeptical ones, renews public interest. Over time, the triangle evolved from geography into legend, a shorthand for anything unexplained. The story continues to adapt. Earlier decades focused on compass errors. Later came aviation mysteries. Today, people discuss energy fields, physics anomalies, or digital glitches. The triangle evolves with culture, absorbing each era's fears and fascinations. Ultimately, the Bermuda Triangle challenges a core modern belief that everything can be explained. It reminds us that uncertainty still exists and that nature can still surprise us. In a world of instant information, the persistence of mystery feels strangely comforting. Perhaps that is why the legend endures. Mysteries captivate us not only because we want answers, but because we enjoy the uncertainty itself. The Bermuda Triangle is more than a place. It is a story, retold, reshaped, and passed down. A modern myth that continues to grow. In the end, what makes the triangle truly powerful is not what has happened there, but what it represents. The meeting point between science and imagination, fear and curiosity, the known and the unknown. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And if you have your own thoughts or theories, feel free to share them in the comments. I'd love to read what you think. Your support truly helps us create more stories like this. See you in the next episode.